Have you fallen down the cottage industry rabbit hole yet? Well, if not, buckle up, Alice, and click on over to the description in the show notes and sign up. Then you can get ready for the most fun induction into the cult of all things yarn and fiber. This will include, but not limited to, free yarn, free ebooks, patterns, coupons, and much more. You don't want to miss out.
You are listening to Crime, Coffee, and Crafts, a podcast featuring two crafty besties who love true crime and a good cup of joe.
Hey, Amateur Sleuths. I'm Kristen.
And I'm Heidi.
Welcome.
Look at Kristen's background. It's so spectacular. If you're not watching, she's got a whole bunch of sunflowers, y'all.
Aren't they pretty?
They're beautiful.
There's a spot in our area that has a whole giant flower field
Nice.
of sunflowers. And they just opened up this week. So my mom and my oldest went and they picked some.
Nice.
Well, they give, $1 a stem. So
right.
Yeah, aren't they pretty? I love them.
That I want to go do that. I'm going to look it up in my area because there are flower
There
farms
are
here.
flower farms everywhere, and they should be in full bloom right now. So, you
should have planted my own, but whatever.
We planted them last year, and they didn't grow on my farm, and I don't know why.
Birds,
sad.
Squirrels,
probably.
I guarantee it. They went. And they were like, fresh ground.
I got 2 stems.
Yeah.
That was it.
That's the problem we have is squirrels dig up our stuff. So
yeah. My produce garden is thriving.
So
we have put a fence around and all that. Oh, this is a side note.
Okay.
Bumblefoot. Have you dealt with Bumblefoot yet?
No, because our property is very well drained.
That's good.
I'm sorry.
I had to deal with one.
Yeah, it's not good.
But she's doing great.
Okay.
I cleaned it. Good. I did it medically how they said to do it.
Yeah.
I performed chicken surgery.
Y'all, that's rough. So I'm just going to tell people Bumblefoot happens when there's not good drainage in an area. Like flatland is normally the problem with chickens because it just holds water and it stays wet.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we are on a hill where we live. So like the water runs out and they always have a dry spot up in the back. So
right now it's real watery because we're raining a lot. Yeah. But we have put down better area for them to run around.
Good.
But yeah, so she got an abscess and I had to.
Sad.
She's doing great though.
Yeah,
she's doing great. Her foot's I dressed it really well and I've been cleaning it. So
next
luckily
time,
she's not
I want pictures.
A wild one.
I just want pictures of her foot wrapped because that's so cute.
I have to clean the dressing again today, so I'll probably put a new dressing on it.
Very nice.
Anyway, chicken problems.
Yeah.
Luckily,
they said it would be fun.
It is fun.
Kristen loves her chickens as much as I do. I think you love your chickens more than I do.
I sit out with mine for a couple hours.
Yeah.
Every day if I can.
I don't anymore because they're all locked up and I'm like, oh, poor chickens.
Well, I have been letting mine come out in the evenings.
Okay. Yeah. I try not to do that right now.
You have nasty wild animals.
We've got a new fox in town.
No, great.
And I think it's a family because I heard it scream and I was like, is that a Yeti? Maybe I already told this story on the podcast, but like it scared me and I was like, is Bigfoot here? Because the way it screamed was
Ooh,
really interesting. And I looked up the sound and it was their alarm bark
yeah,
to let like somebody know somebody's coming.
right.
Middle of the day.
Crazy.
Anyway.
Coffee. I had a local one this time.
Sweet.
Well, local-ish. It's in the
Ish.
southeastern region
Okay.
of the world where I live.
All right.
It's called Casablanca, and they have a roast. They roast it next door to their coffee shop.
Oh, awesome.
And this one is a Guatemala blend, and it's got. Sorry.
Oh, she
Stupid
needs her glasses.
Hi. Orange, chocolate, and maple.
Ooh, that sounds delicious.
It is. It's a lighter coffee, less acidic. I enjoy it, but it's not a strong.
It's not super, super dark.
Not super.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Lighter than what you normally drink.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
And I love their boxes, their artwork, but I'm sad because their decaf is the one that has the best artwork on it, and it's like a cherry with a skull on, like the skull is the cherry. And I originally picked that one up not thinking that it was decaf, and David was like, that's decaf. I was like, oh no, I don't drink decaf.
Obviously, look at your shirt. Death before decaf.
So he went and exchanged it for me.
Oh my gosh.
I was too embarrassed to go back in.
That is hysterical. He's like, she bought it for the label, not realizing it was decaf.
Yep.
That is really funny.
Yeah, I'm a mess, guys.
I wouldn't go that far. Don't mind me.
I'm going to ask you a couple questions.
Oh, yes. I'm so excited.
Horror trivia.
Yes.
What movie features an alien hunter hiding in the jungle using trees and camouflage?
Predator?
Yes.
Nailed it.
Good job.
Awesome.
This one is kind of a campy one, but what Wayans Brothers parody series used the title that Wes Craven initially wanted for his slasher film, Scream?
Scary movie.
Y'all.
Hell yeah. Those are funny movies too.
They are. Who was the host in the Tales from the Crypt TV series?
Fuck. I don't know.
The Crypt Keeper.
Well, yeah, it was okay. It was the Crypt Keeper, but like
he was like a puppet.
Yeah.
Thingy.
Creepy.
He was. And they always played that show like
I loved
middle of the night.
I loved that show.
It's streaming.
I'm totally gonna start
what it's streaming on.
I'm gonna find it.
You find it.
I really loved that show.
And the episodes were like campy but still creepy, you know?
Yes.
It had a good balance.
I think everything was campy back then though.
True.
Nothing was really scary.
Yeah.
Except I don't know when Tales from the Crypt came out.
I think it was the 90s.
I have to look it up. Let's see.
Don't mind me. I'm just grabbing giant artwork.
The Crypt. All right, I'm looking it up. 1989?
Oh.
Yeah, so I mean
90s, I was close. But
yeah, close enough.
Close enough.
That's so funny. Apparently, it was based on a comic series.
Yes,
know
there
that.
was a graphic novel,
Yeah,
comic book. Yeah.
nice.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good show. All right,
It was. So we digress.
all the time.
I'm going to share a painting I did. This one is very near and dear to me because it reminds me of the California desert, and I called
Ooh.
it the Painted Desert.
Ooh.
It is a 24 by 30 canvas. So it's like one of my largest pieces.
Damn. Might need to like stand up for that one. Holy smokes. That's beautiful. Yep. It's beautiful. Beautiful. So bright. I love it.
Yay.
Oh,
So
sometimes I miss the desert.
I do. I miss it a lot.
Sometimes. I miss skateboarding in the desert.
Yes.
On those like hilly roads where like there's never any cars.
Yeah. My parents had a house out there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They sold it last year.
Yep.
No longer have a house out there.
Good time to sell though. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was.
All right.
Yeah. So that was all the fun stuff.
Yeah. Yay.
This is a tough one, guys. I'm not gonna lie, it's a hard one. And I am gonna be a little detailed. So just forewarning, this one has child murder and sexual assault and rape.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Ready.
Hold on to your butts.
I've got crochet. Ready.
Okay.
I'm not going to show it because it's for my next.
For your next one.
So.
Well, this one is the Moors murders. And if you don't know what a moor is, it's a tract of open country that may be either dry with heather and associated vegetation or wet with an acid peat vegetation. And in the British Isles, moorland is often used to describe uncultivated hilly areas. If wet, a moor is generally synonymous with a bog.
Moors.
So, England.
Yeah. I think I know this one, but I'm really excited you're telling it because it's a doozy.
Yeah. I really went deep in this one, and it's a tough one to shake. So,
yeah.
So you know how sometimes we talk about normal serial killers and whatever that really means?
Yeah, whatever that really means. But yeah.
Well, today this is an interesting story about a couple who decided to murder children together.
Yep.
It's not a pretty story.
That's some fucked up shit.
As I warned before, you know, the child murder and rape is pretty awful. So, excuse me. So how did this happen? Why were they dubbed the Moors murders? Why did the two decide to murder together, and who were the culprits? The despicable, awful culprits.
They're evil.
Pure, unadulterated evil. So, let me clear my throat. Let me clear my throat.
I couldn't help it.
When I was coming up with an idea for a new story, I was thinking, what could I do? We're in July. So I decided to look at what murderers were born in July.
Yeah, look at you.
So my search came up with Myra Hindley.
Yeah.
She was born July 23rd, 1942.
Fucking bitch shares fucking birthday with my husband.
But not only that, my brother Nathaniel and our friend JT or Jason, aka the Boredom Report mastermind.
I mean, I call him by his last name still, but
Meadows.
I can't help it. It's who
I know. But if anyone doesn't go follow the Boredom Report.
Yes.
Because he gives all the cool deets on all things food and beer and wine in Mexico, mostly Baja. And he's making wine and beer now.
And he's the funniest motherfucker that I've ever met in my entire life, still to this day.
He's hilarious, and he loves Mexican wrestling.
Well, duh. I mean, come on.
So if you're into that stuff, go check out his videos, check out his page.
Yes.
There's your little shout out, Meadows. Even though he's got more followers than we do.
I know, but still.
So mind you, none of the people in our lives were actually born in that year, but on the month and day. So after looking up Myra, I also found that she and her boyfriend, Ian Brady, who was born January 2nd, 1938, got together and went on a little 2-year disgusting journey together.
What? Terrible human beings.
Yeah.
I'm like stress crocheting right now, like not kidding.
I know. I'm sorry. Sometimes these stories are a little rough.
It's okay. Carry on.
So Myra was born to parents Nellie and Bob Hindley and raised in Gorton, which is a town in Manchester, England. A lot of folks know of Manchester, England because of soccer. A lot of football hooligans come from Manchester.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Myra's father was a horrible drunk, and he was violent to his wife and children and often abused them. Their family home was in poor condition as well, and things got worse after Myra's younger sister was born in 1946, and her name is Maureen. At 5 years old, Myra went and lived with her grandmother. But they lived close by to her parents and sister, so they still interacted. And I'm not quite sure why she was living there, except that maybe the grandmother took on the financial responsibility of Myra.
Okay.
To help ease the financial responsibility of having the second child.
Right.
But they were still involved. And when Myra's dad, he had served in World War II.
Okay.
And he was a tough man. He was a violent man, and he wanted his daughters to be equally tough. He didn't have boys, so he focused all of his attention on his girls, obviously, but in a different way.
Sounds like not healthy way.
Right. And he insisted that they learn how to take care of themselves and be independent and not have anyone beat them up without a fight.
Which, I mean,
right.
That's not terrible, but it's the way you go about it that could be really bad.
Right. And when Myra was just 8 years old, a boy had scratched her face, and she ran home crying to her father. And her father stated that if she did not find the boy and beat him up, that she would get whipped with a strap or leather, as he called it.
She was forcibly put into fighting, basically.
Right. Yeah. So she found the boy and beat him up in the street after pushing him to the ground.
Great.
She ran home and was congratulated by her father. So as a child, she learned that this was acceptable behavior. So, and you and I know that violence doesn't help solve anything. It might make people feel better about themselves in the moment, but violence should never be the go-to action.
It makes them feel tough, and it makes them feel like they're better than the other person. It's right. That's not okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So as she got older, Myra learned to take care of herself because that's what her father told her she needed to do. She also took judo lessons in town. But due to her violent nature, a lot of the other students would not train with her. So she kind of fell away from it because she would go to class and no one would work with her because she was
a dirty fighter.
yeah, and she wouldn't, once she got her grip, she would never let go. And so she was
Right.
hurting people past what you're supposed to in
Right.
martial arts
And
classes.
that's what I mean about dirty fighter. If anybody doesn't know what that means, you don't follow the rules of the fighting. That's not
Yeah.
okay.
Right. She also, from the time she was like 17, she like would get a job and work a couple months and then she'd be fired or let go. She never really stuck with anything for long.
Okay.
She also had short courtships with boys, and until Ian Brady, she never felt like the other boys could give her what she was looking for in life. She felt the other boys were immature and not strong enough to live a life with her.
I hate to say it, but that resonates with me.
I think she had somewhat good intentions, but they drew her into a bad place.
Right.
So now we have Ian Brady. He was born in Glasgow, Scotland, to an unmarried waitress named Waitress. I
mean, it's okay.
She was named Margaret Stewart, but went by Peggy. She had said that Ian's father was a reporter working for the newspaper, but had died months before Brady was born, or before Ian was born.
Oh.
So, due to Peggy being a single mom and not able to care for her son, she gave Ian to a couple named Mary and John Sloan. And they had already had 4 children of their own.
Wow.
So, yes, they were financially taking care of him for his necessities, but they weren't really there for him.
Right.
A roof and some clothes and food, but
we will care for him, but we will not show him
there's
affection,
too many
probably.
other kids of their own to
it's hard to get that attention.
Yeah. So throughout his childhood, his mother would visit him, but he became a child who had violent tendencies and often torture animals, which we know leads to, I mean, a lot of times that's a sign for serial killer.
Yeah, well, digression, sorry. Did you guys see in the news recently that there were a bunch of dead animals in trash bags behind an apartment building in Georgia? I think it was in Georgia. I'll have to find it.
I don't know if I...
Dude.
That's crazy.
Yeah, the people in the neighborhood are freaking out because I would think that there's probably a serial killer also, or a budding serial killer.
Yeah. Someone taking out the trash and evidence.
Yep. Anyway.
To cover for someone else, possibly.
You just reminded me of it, so.
Nice.
Yikes.
Lovely.
Yeah.
And it's Georgia, so.
Who knows?
Ian ended up going in front of the juvenile court twice for what they called housebreaking. It's a criminal law in the act of entering a building as a trespasser for an unlawful purpose. And in 1968, it was changed to burglary.
Yeah.
So back then at that time, it was housebreaking.
Interesting.
At first, when I read it, I was like, he's having trouble being housebroken?
I was like, is he a cat?
Are we having trouble urinating in the toilet?
Yeah, confused.
But it is not that. It is that he broke into homes. After going to juvenile court a couple times, he really did try and have a somewhat normal childhood. And at 15, he got his first job as what they called a T-boy in a shipyard, and then a butcher's messenger boy. So I think those are terms for gophers, you know,
right.
like
Yeah.
go for this, go for that. But during this time, he had a girlfriend named Evelyn Grant, and that quickly ended because he threatened her with a knife because she went to a dance with another boy. And that was when he was 15.
Yikes.
Yeah. So he went back to juvenile court with another 9 charges before he was 17. So I guess that incident with the girlfriend kind of pushed him forward to doing other things.
Right.
They don't really talk about it much, but before his 17th birthday, he was placed on probation. And one of the stipulations for his probation, a condition, was that he had to go live with his mother. And she was living in Manchester.
Okay.
So that's how we get from Scotland to England. And she was married to an Irish fruit merchant named Patrick Brady. And this is how Ian became a Brady.
Oh, got it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yup.
Nice.
So for a couple years, Ian got into some trouble, but he wanted to do better for himself. He always seemed, during my research and everything, it seemed like he was trying to be doing the right thing, but always got himself into bad situations and acted out violently.
Right.
So I'm not sure what the disconnect was, but
I kind of wonder if he's just like his full evil side hasn't like really come out yet.
Right.
But it's growing.
It's there.
Yeah.
So he was trying to stay out of trouble. He wanted to do better. So he learned how to become a bookkeeper, and he would study for hours alone in his room and stayed out of trouble. In 1959, he got a clerical job at Millwards, which was a wholesale chemical distribution company based in Gorton, which was where Myra was living and had grown up.
Right.
So this brings us to them being now in the same town.
Yeah.
In Ian's downtime, he read a lot of books, but geared his reading towards the Nazis.
Oh, fuck.
German language books, and he read Mein Kampf.
Of course he did.
Yeah. 2 years later, he stayed in that job. And in 1961, 18-year-old Myra got a job at Millwards as a typist. So they were now working together in the same office because he was a bookkeeper, she was a typist.
All right.
She became infatuated with Ian and wrote often about him in her diary. But it would take almost a whole year for Ian to ask Myra out on a date to the movies.
Wow.
So they worked together a whole year. She was writing all goobly gobbly in her diary like young girls do, I guess.
Probably his accent. It was like heavy Scottish.
Probably, yeah.
Hell yeah.
So Ian continued to court Myra, and they had a regular dating pattern of going to the movies, often watching more at the time X-rated movies, but they weren't like the X-rated movies of today.
People kissed.
They showed leg.
Oh my gosh, I saw an ankle. Sorry.
Oh, there's a shoulder. Get that shoulder. So they would go to those kinds of movies and then go to Myra's house to drink German wine. She was still living with grandma. She lived with grandma the whole time.
Disturbing.
Ian would give her reading material, and the couple would spend their lunch breaks reading aloud to one another, which sounds like a lovely time.
It's cute, but not cute.
But it's not know. And they were usually reading about Nazi atrocities. So,
I mean, it's one thing to learn about those things.
For historical purposes, just so you know, but like
It's another when you're like fantasizing those things.
Yep. And Myra started to appear in the ideal Aryan perfection by bleaching her hair blonde and wearing a very red lipstick. She would wear high boots and short skirts and leather jackets.
Sounds cute.
And this is kind of the mod era.
What year are we in?
61.
Hell yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
So she was, you know.
When you say short skirts, you mean like holy shit short. Because that era,
yeah,
it was mini.
Yeah, they were definitely right under the butt cheeks.
Awesome.
So she also went as far to write letters. And in one letter, she wrote, "Within months, he had convinced me that there was no God at all. He could have told me that the earth was flat, the moon was made of green cheese, and the sun rose in the west. I would have believed him. Such was his power of persuasion."
Sorry, you're making me laugh because so many people believe those things, but okay.
Yes.
Okay.
By the way, if the moon was made of green cheese, I'd probably die with all the
That's
emanating.
true. The particles would get you.
Yep. The couple became increasingly codependent, so far as to become less sociable to their colleagues.
Okay.
They regularly went to the library and borrowed books on philosophy, crime, and torture. And he moved in with her at her grandma's house. So they were living at grandma's together.
Living in sin.
Yeah.
All right.
I guess grandma was cool with it. They don't really talk much about grandma's
Maybe
influence.
grandma didn't know.
Maybe grandma was dementia. I don't really know.
We have no clue.
They regularly okay. Myra got her driver's license, right?
Okay.
It took 3 failed attempts for her to finally pass the 4th time or whatever. But they would regularly rent a van and drive around and fantasize about bank robberies, about doing bank robberies.
Yikes, dude.
Myra also joined a pistol club. And although she found that she was a terrible shot, like she could not hit the target for anything, she ended up purchasing 2 guns from members of the club. One was a Webley .45 caliber, and the other was a Smith & Wesson .38 caliber. So now they get in this van and they run around town pretending like they're going to rob a bank. And
she's armed and has a terrible shot.
Yeah. So it just sounds like a horribly terrible time.
This is not going anywhere good.
Very dangerous. The couple never went anywhere with the idea of doing any bank robberies, but they seemed to have fun planning them out.
Okay.
They also started photography as a hobby and would take photos of each other that were, for that time, considered explicit.
I wonder what they were taking photos of that were explicit.
They don't have any real, I mean, to me, they don't look explicit. They have photos of her sitting in his lap in a chair, or her
it was inappropriate
in the open fields.
For the time.
At the time it was inappropriate.
Yeah.
They also created their own darkroom for developing the photographs. So at grandma's, I guess they made a closet into a darkroom and would develop their photos. Through this photography, Myra developed a better self-confidence, whereas before she was shy and some would say a bit of a prude.
Interesting.
So Ian helped open her up to
other
yeah. So, again, hold on to your butts.
I'm gonna hold on to my butt.
Or have someone hold on to your butt.
Oh man.
Where's Ben? Oh yeah, he's smoking meat.
He's smoking meat today.
So July of 1963. So they have developed this 2-year relationship. They're pretty strong, pretty codependent, reading all the time, just getting their whole lives in line with each other. So Ian decides to confess to Myra that he wants to commit the perfect murder.
Okay, Myra should have just turned the other way and ran. But no.
But he could convince her that the world was flat.
Yep.
And the moon was made of green cheese.
I mean, delicious cheese.
So Ian decided that Myra would drive a van while he followed on his motorcycle. And if he saw a victim that he wanted to pursue, he would flash his headlights.
Okay.
He wanted his first victim to be an 8-year-old neighbor of Myra's mother, but Myra decided not to stop for that one. Because I guess to her, she said that someone would expect an 8-year-old to have a lot of support and it would be easier for them to get caught. So
Yeah.
she was like, no, we're not taking the 8-year-old.
Yeah.
So the second person he flashed his lights for was a 16-year-old girl named Pauline Reed. She happened to be a girl who went to school with Myra's younger sister, Maureen. And while the girl was on the way to a dance, she was walking. Myra offered the young girl a ride. And once she was in the van, Myra asked her to help her search for her lost glove at Saddleworth Moor.
Shit.
The girl agreed, and Myra drove down to the moor with Ian arriving behind them on his motorcycle. Ian took the poor girl down further down the moor,
Right.
while Myra stood back at the van. Ian returned about 30 minutes later and took Myra to the spot where the young lady lay dying.
Okay.
Ian had cut her throat, nearly decapitating her, and her clothes were all over the place. When Myra asked Ian if he had raped the girl, his response was, "Of course I did."
How dare you ask me that? Of course I did.
I mean,
Yikes, dude.
yeah. So Myra says she did not participate in the incident, just helped bury the body. But Ian later in testimony says that she was not only present for the attack, but participated in the sexual assault.
I don't understand how people can be that kind of couple. Or do those kinds of crimes.
Or
but
person, period.
But be that kind of couple is just so extra creepy to me.
Yeah. I mean, let's just put it this way. The whole age-old story of Bonnie and Clyde being the greatest romantic story of all.
I think it's the stupidest thing
it's
to
crazy
call it that.
to me. That is not a healthy relationship. That is toxic and volatile and awful, and
it's fucking stupid.
It's not healthy, guys. Not healthy.
Yeah.
If your partner is telling you to commit criminal acts, especially against other people, let alone children, I would say something. Get out of it. That's lots of red flags. Lots of red flags.
911.
Yeah, exactly. So, anywho, that they buried her, and she wasn't found for years later.
Shit.
In November 1963, so we went from July to now November,
Okay.
Ian and Myra offered a 12-year-old boy named John Kilbride a ride home by promising him a bottle of sherry. Using the same ruse as the first victim, Myra asked if he would help them search for the glove she had lost on the moor. Once they arrived at the moor, Ian took the young boy, sexually assaulted him, and tried to slit his throat with a knife before strangling him with a shoelace.
What? It's interesting because they don't have a type.
Right. It's just vulnerable people.
Right. Ugh.
Yeah. So the following year, in June of 1964, Myra asked 12-year-old boy named Keith Bennett to help her load some boxes into the van. The boy said he would help, and once in the van, asked if they would look for a lost glove at the moor. So, exact same MOs.
Yeah, it's the same story every time.
But different victims.
Yeah.
Although this one is the same as the last,
right.
12-year-old boys. But once they got to the moor, Ian left with the boy for about 30 minutes and again sexually assaulted and strangled him with a piece of string. Also, I should say that in between these murders, the couple, that was their hangout spot.
Jeez.
They would go down there and take photos, and they would just drink wine and just hang out. That was just the place that they went to hang out.
So
and
creepy.
later on, like a year into this, Maureen, Myra's sister, was married to a man named Dave Smith, and they all kind of had double dates at the moor, and
Yikes.
they would joke about like Dave and Ian would secretly talk about possibly doing bank robberies and such.
What the fuck is wrong with these people?
Yeah.
Honestly.
So that was what they would do in their downtime between murders. In December, they seemed to go like 4 to 6 months in between each murder.
Okay.
And in December 1964, Myra and Ian went to a fair in a town called Ancoats. And they noticed a 10-year-old girl named Leslie Ann Downing who seemed to be alone. So the couple went to the girl and purposefully dropped some groceries in front of her and asked if she could help them carry the items to their vehicle. They drove her to their home because they got her in the van. I think they said that they would give her a ride home or something if she helped. And instead they drove her to their home, mind you, with grandma. I don't know where grandma's at, but this all happened at grandma's house where they're living.
Yeah, I wonder if grandma's like deaf, maybe. I mean,
I don't know. Yeah.
Did hearing aids exist yet?
I don't think so.
I don't think so, but I don't know.
Yeah. So they drove her to their home, undressed her, gagged her, and forcibly posed her for photographs before she was raped and killed.
Jeez.
Now, they believe that she was strangled with a piece of string like the other two before. Myra claims that she went to draw a bath, and when she came back, the girl was dead. But Ian claims that Myra killed the little girl. So the stories are...
I feel like Myra is a piece of shit liar. And just doesn't want to admit it to herself.
Yeah, I think in testimonies back and forth, she says that she was, persuaded by Ian and would do anything that he asked her to do. And
I'm just a girl.
I'm just a girl in a world.
I couldn't do
all
it like that.
Yeah. So the following morning, the couple drove her body to the Saddleworth Moor and buried her naked with her clothes at her feet in a shallow grave. So that's 4 bodies buried at the moor, the same area. Moving almost a whole year
Wow.
in October 1965. Now, I feel like because they connected them to other missing children, I
Okay.
feel like there are unsolved cases in here
For
like,
sure.
for their span of absence,
Mhm.
but there's not a lot of
Well,
information
for
about
all
that.
we know, they could have been traveling to another freaking country
Right.
driving. You know what I mean? Like,
It was easy.
it was easy. So,
And they had good jobs, so they had
yeah,
money.
exactly. And they lived with grandma, so like they didn't have rent
Yeah.
or a mortgage.
Right. In October of 1965, Myra drove Ian to the Manchester Central train station and waited in a vehicle while Ian selected another victim. Ian found 17-year-old Edward Evans,
Oh,
who was an apprentice engineer. Ian introduced Myra as his sister to the boy because this interaction with the victim was to be a little different, and Ian claims that he picked him up for a sexual encounter. And so the couple took him to their home and drank wine with him.
okay.
They relaxed over a little wine. During this, Ian had Myra go get her brother-in-law, who I said earlier was
Yeah.
one that they befriended and was talking about
Bank robberies.
doing bank robberies with.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure why they decided to involve the brother-in-law, but it might have been to throw off any idea that they were the ones killing these kids.
Mm-hmm.
Dave had a checkered past and had some run-ins with the law, but so did Ian.
Right.
So I don't know really what their thinking was behind all this, but maybe they thought he could be a good scapegoat.
Right. Yeah, probably.
But Dave recalls Myra shouting, "Dave, help him," very loud. So like if anyone was listening,
Yeah.
they would hear his name.
Right.
So he ran in the house and saw the young man lying with his head and shoulders on the couch and his legs on the floor. He was facing upwards, and Ian stood over him while the boy was still screaming. He had a hatchet in his hand, and he was holding it above his head, and he hit the boy on the left side of his head with the hatchet. I heard the blow. It was a terrible, hard blow. It sounded horrible, Dave said. He also said that he watched Ian hit him with an electrical cord, and after the struggle, Ian had sprained his ankle, and they couldn't move the body, so they wrapped the boy in plastic sheeting and put him in the spare bedroom.
Yikes.
Until they could
Until
take
Ian's
him.
ankle was better.
I guess, yeah.
God.
Because Dave couldn't lift the body by himself, and I guess Myra wasn't going to help him.
Well, Myra, if you're going to be involved in shit like this, maybe you should be more helpful, you prude. Good God.
So
Also,
Dave,
don't kill people.
Seriously. Ugh. Anyways, Dave agreed to come back the following morning to help transport the body and dispose of it at the moor. But this was all a ruse because instead he arrived home at 3:00 in the morning and had his wife Maureen, which was Myra's sister, make him some tea And then he proceeded to vomit and explained to her what happened.
Oh gosh.
So he told his wife what he just witnessed and what he was a part of. So at approximately 6:00 in the morning, 3 hours later, he went to a phone box and called the police.
Good.
He was picked up and taken to the Hyde police station where he told officers what had happened that night. But it seems it had been a tough interview and investigation at the beginning because the cops seemed to think that it was actually Dave that committed the crime.
Okay.
They did bring Myra and Ian in for questioning, but due to their joie de vivre, I guess you could say, they were, intelligent, could speak properly. They, at the time, convinced them that Dave was the one who had committed the crime.
Don't they know serial killers? I mean, they didn't even know what a serial killer was at the time because that term had not been coined yet.
No,
but
not until the 80s.
They're normally very intelligent.
Right.
Oh gosh.
But even though they tried to blame Dave and put everything on him, the cops did go further because they were still this office was investigating this particular crime, but another division was investigating the missing children. And those detectives were still trying to find where these kids had gone. And so hearing news of this, they somehow got a warrant to search the apartment that they lived in with grandma.
Yes.
Yeah. So through the search of the home and all the evidence that came to light, they realized that Ian and Myra were the ones involved and had done the atrocious acts.
Yikes. But good.
They found photograph evidence of the one girl that they dressed up or undressed and did child pornography of.
In their apartment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they found train ticket stubs
my God.
of the places they went.
Right.
So they linked them to these other missing children.
That's awesome.
The head investigator also found photographs of them at the moor. So they went and did a search of the moor.
Okay.
Once at the moor, they found shallow graves of the missing children. But not all of them. They only had 3 bodies. Well, the one that was at their apartment,
right.
And then they found 2 others at the moor. They didn't find the other 2.
Interesting that they never found them.
Yeah. So May that following year, so I guess we're in 66 now.
Okay.
They went to trial and the jury deliberated for 2 hours and found Ian guilty of 3 murders and Myra guilty of 2. The death penalty had been abolished and the judge passed the only sentence he could, which was life imprisonment. The judge said that the murders were truly horrible and accused them of being 2 sadistic killers of the utmost depravity.
Fuck yeah.
He recommended they spend a very long time in prison before being considered for parole. He called it wicked beyond belief and said he saw no reasonable possibility of reform for Ian. He did, however, say that once Myra was removed from Ian and his influence, she might be able to reform. But I think that's a cop-out.
It is a cop-out, and
he made
playing,
her choices.
Yeah, it's playing to that whole, and just a girl shit that's like, couldn't possibly be capable of doing this on my own.
Right.
Bullshit.
So, and I know what you're thinking, why only three victims? But at the time, they'd only known about the 3 children. And years later, the couple confessed to the other 2 children's murders.
Mhm.
But it was determined, and he's like Ian said, I can take you to where the other bodies are.
Right.
But that never ended up happening. They never got the other 2. And they said that they determined that they were already serving the highest sentence possible. So they didn't want to go through another lengthy, costly trial.
Right.
So I think everyone knows, like through confession and through the missing bodies and everything else, that clearly they are to blame for all these children. But it wasn't worth it to go to trial. So
Right. If they're already serving life, I get it.
yeah. The couple was linked to other missing children in the area. But nothing came of that, like I said. And Myra ended up dying in November of 2002 of bronchial pneumonia because of her chain smoking addiction. And Ian died of restrictive pulmonary disease in May of 2017.
Can't say it, but good.
Yeah, they lived a long life in prison, though.
At least locked up. And they couldn't be
Yeah.
together taking pictures and killing kids.
And in 1987, because Myra went in saying she didn't do any of these things and was just there helping.
Right.
But in 1987, she ended up confessing to like her sister and other folks that yes, she did participate in the murders, and wasn't just a standby. She didn't just aid and abet. She participated in everything.
Right.
And this case has been dramatized on television twice in See No Evil, The Moors Murders, and the award-winning Longford. I did watch See No Evil. It's a 3-part series.
Yeah, I've seen that. I haven't even heard of the other one.
I haven't even.
Words are hard, y'all.
I have not heard of Longford. So it might be a Brit show,
Ooh, yeah, and I don't pay extra for those, even though I want to. If they cost
I had those streaming services back at the other house. They're
on Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime, you can pay extra for like BBC shows.
Yeah, and that's where I got See No Evil was on.
Damn it.
Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
But they were streaming it on Freezy or Freevee.
Okay.
There's also a book called The Loathsome Couple by Edward Gorey in 1977, which was inspired by the Moors murders.
That's a hell of a last name.
Yeah, Gorey.
I like it.
There is the Manchester band The Smiths. Whoop, whoop. If you know who they are, then you're good. But they wrote a song called Suffer Little Children from this case.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
But a great band.
Yes.
According to the 2020 television documentary Rose West and Myra Hindley, Their Untold Story with Trevor McDonald, Hindley and another British serial murderer, Rosemary West, which I know nothing about, and I'm going to have to go research her.
Yeah.
They grew close in jail, bonding over their similar crimes, then had an affair, which cooled as they became rivals to be prison royalty.
Okay, what similar crimes?
Yeah, that's why
you have to look into that one. I will not. I'll let you handle that.
I'm gonna write down Rosemary West.
Definitely add it to your list.
So sometimes when we do our cases, we really go into rabbit holes. And this one was a rabbit hole. It was also one of the worst cases of modern day. And they are awful human beings, but interesting nonetheless.
Well, it's always interesting looking into like the fuck led them to be this kind of person.
I know.
But this one, honestly, to me, like it sounds a lot like nature and nurture, a nice mix.
Yeah. I just,
'Cause their lives, honestly, like nothing sounded so heinous to cause them to do such heinous things. And
Right.
specifically, not just murdering kids, but raping them.
I
The
know.
sexual assaults, that's a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, yeah, ugh. They're despicable.
Hmm.
I, for one, am glad they're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Less evil in the world.
Yeah.
But we're breeding more.
Oh, yeah. Always.
Always. It's always stuff. But yeah. So
I really like the
I
flowers
didn't know I was going to
in
get
the
through that.
background. Just saying.
I think I'm going to,
I think you should do that more often. I
Continue
really
that.
like it. Yeah.
I usually just have a blank white wall.
I forgot to
With
show off my candle. Dang it.
Oh,
In my last episode, I meant to show it off because
nice.
the same summer box. I just saw it and was like, oh, it's coffee bean scented.
Wow.
And it's so yummy smelling.
I bet.
I sniffed it and I was like, oh, that's straight coffee. It's so good.
Sniff it some more.
All right. That all we got? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, y'all.
I hope that all of you out there make good
Are-
choices.
Yeah, don't make the same choices that they made. Ooh.
No.
Yeah, but check out our website, y'all, crimecoffeeandcrafts.com, even though I think I have it in our little whatever thing.
Our outro.
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 Yes. But yeah, check it out. We've got cool shit.
We do. We do. And we're ever growing. We're constantly getting new ideas, and hopefully you guys just continue to listen and love us.
And
we
spread
love
the
you.
word. Tell your friends, tell your parents, tell your siblings, tell your coworkers, tell everyone. Anyway,
Yes.
we love you. Until next time, ta-ta.
For now.
Thanks for listening to Crime, Coffee, and Crafts. If you love our podcast, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. This helps us more than you know. If you really love us and want to support us, go to our website at www.crimecoffeeandcrafts.com. From there, you can join our Patreon, shop our merch, and find us on social media.